A local resident and unofficial SpaceX observer has reported hearing a test of one of Starship's Raptor engines that lasted more than 5 minutes at the company's McGregor, Texas development facilities. If accurate, it could be the longest static fire of a Starship engine that SpaceX has ever completed in the 2 years since full-scale Raptor testing first began. Whether it was successful or not, a 5 or 6 minute static fire would also confirm that SpaceX is well into the process of qualifying Raptor for Starship's first orbital launch attempts. An FCC, Special Temporary Authority, STA, request filed by SpaceX itself for Starship's inaugural orbital test flight earlier this month provided several significant details about that milestone mission. Aside from revealing that Starship will ultimately attempt a soft ocean landing, splashdown, off the coast of a Hawaiian island after traveling approximately 75% of the way around Earth, it also included a precise timeline of launch events. According to that timeline, 10 seconds shy of 3 minutes after liftoff, Starship's Super Heavy booster will shut down and separate from the spacecraft. Starship will then ignite either 3 or 6 Raptor engines for a bit less than 6 minutes to boost itself within the vicinity of orbital velocity. Curiously, the same timeline makes no mention of a deorbit burn, without which the first orbital test flight will technically be suborbital even if Starship is traveling very close to orbital velocity. Regardless, the document confirmed that Starship's orbital insertion burns will be approximately 5.5 to 6.5 minutes long, the maximum stamina required from its Raptor engines, in other words. Rephrased, in its current design, Starship will never be able to reach orbit without Raptor engines, capable of continuously operating for around 6 minutes. Up until high-altitude Starship test flights began in December 2020, the extent of Raptor's long-duration capabilities, and thus the state of SpaceX testing was effectively a mystery. When Starship SN8 debuted, however, it quickly became clear that SpaceX had made significant progress, after one of its 3 Raptor engines burned without apparent issue, for 280 seconds 4-minute 40-second. If SN3X and SN4X Raptors could handle almost 5 minutes of continuous operation, the engine was just approximately 20% improvement away from being able to complete a plausible orbital insertion burn. Now, 6 months later, Raptor appears to have completed at least one truly orbital class burn at SpaceX's Central Texas development campus. McGregor typically completes multiple static fires every day, and already performs similar duration testing of Merlin vacuum engines in upper stages, so it's possible, if not probable, that one or several other 5 or 6 minute long tests have simply been missed over the last few months. Beginning just a handful of months ago, SpaceX has been rapidly building a new Raptor test stand, with 2 vertical engine bays, and new liquid oxygen and methane propellant storage to go with it. Given that a 6-minute Raptor engine static fire, at or close to full thrust would consume around 220 metric tons of propellant, it's possible that SpaceX's ground test facilities simply didn't have the storage capacity to support such long tests prior to those recent upgrades. Regardless, the first and officially confirmed orbital duration test is an exciting and important milestone, with or without SpaceX confirmation, and continues to make it abundantly clear that the company is now almost entirely focused on reaching orbit or getting close. With at least the first test flight of Super Heavy and Starship set to splashdown, as opposed to a return to a landing site, a large stock of Raptor engines will be required before the engines are expected to return with their vehicles for future flights. Super Heavy will now host 29 engines on its aft, as observed via a photo of a new thrust puck arriving at Starbase on Friday via Mary, at Boca Chica, and then confirmed by Musk on Twitter. He added that Super Heavy would eventually evolve to hosting 32 engines. The supply line for this engine demand is being focused at the production site at SpaceX HQ in Hawthorne, California. Musk added that Raptor production is approaching 1 every 48 hours, most likely a reference to one Raptor rolling off the production line every 48 hours. Raptors are then shipped to SpaceX's test center at McGregor in Texas, where they are test-fired to validate the engines ahead of being sent to the South Texas launch site. SpaceX currently utilizes 2 horizontal test bays and 1 vertical tripod test stand, the latter converted from being a Falcon 9 test stand. During his latest flight past Photos from NSF's Gary Blair in the L2 McGregor section spotted Raptors in all three bays, including what appears to be another new Raptorback engine. Increased test cadence will be supported by the addition of 2 additional bays, in a new test stand that resides next door to the current horizontal test stand. It is understood that along with these 2 new vertical test bays, McGregor could support 1 Raptor engine validation firing per day. The new stand appears to be close to hosting its first Raptor firing, with 1 engine spotted in one of the bays, likely to allow fit checks to be conducted. There's no doubt that 2021 has seen some incredible progress made on both the vehicles and facilities, and while test flights may be on hold for the moment, progress will not slow down, as SpaceX continues to build up its Boca Chica launch site. Ahead of the first orbital flight attempt targeted for later this year. Musk says that Super Heavy boosters will, initially, have 29 Raptor engines instead of 28 engines, and could even be upgraded to 32 engines down the road. In 2020, the vehicle's design was updated, dropping from 31 to 28 engines for unknown reasons, before SpaceX began work on the first real Super Heavy hardware. Who or what has been causing those seemingly endless design changes is unclear, but SpaceX is finally at a point where any more major changes will explicitly delay plans for Starship's inaugural spaceflight, deemed an orbital test flight by the company. It remains to be seen if SpaceX will actually attempt to recover the first booster after those initial quasi-orbital test flights, but we now have a better idea of what those Super Heavies might look like. Namely, Musk seems to indicate that even the very first flightworthy prototypes will be outfitted with a full complement of Raptors, seemingly nipping in the bud the possibility of a booster debuting with the fewest possible engines. In the case of the first few initial orbital launch, that means that SpaceX is happy to risk losing 32 to 35 engines for every single attempt. That could imply several things. SpaceX might be extremely confident that early boosters will be recovered. It could have zero faith in the reusability of early flown Raptors, meaning that they're functionally expendable regardless of the outcome. SpaceX could have also reduced the cost and increased the speed of production, to the point that expending dozens of Raptors isn't a major issue. Though approximately 32 Raptors would cost $8 million, even if SpaceX has already hit Musk's long-term, less than $250,000 per engine target. However, Musk also says that SpaceX has ramped up Raptor production, to the point that it's almost completing 1 engine every 48 hours. Equating to around 180 Raptors per year, or a maximum cadence of 1 expendable 3-engine Starship, and 29-engine booster launch every 9 weeks. At that run rate, Raptor has likely beat out Falcon's venerable Merlin to become SpaceX's most produced rocket engine. According to NASA Spaceflight, SpaceX has already begun work on Raptors with serial numbers in the 150s. 2 new Raptor test stands in work at its McGregor development facilities will also reportedly enable an average of 1 engine qualification every day, enough testing capacity to outfit 6 boosters, and 30 Starships, approximately 365 Raptors per year. In short, SpaceX is well on its way to having the ability to manufacture and power a truly vast fleet of Starships and Super Heavy boosters. Thanks for watching this video, and it's a super interesting topic. If you like this, make sure to subscribe. If you have any crazy ideas about what we should cover in next video, please comment it below, and we'll see if we can get to it. So thanks again for watching and goodbye.